Last week on Gleeboot, they did a movie tribute. Marley admitted that Ryder kissed her, and Santana followed Alyssa's suspicion that something is shady going on with Brody. And that's what we missed on Gleeboot.
Yay!
Yeah.
Gleeboot.
Welcome back to Gleeboot, the show where we get drunk and talk about rebooting Glee one episode at a time. I'm Cullen.
Alyssa, and Hannah's not here today.
Hannah, had some personal things. But we have a classmate and friend from grad school.
One of my best friends.
Yes, Nick Bennett.
Yup, that's me. Hello. I am super pumped to be on Gleeboot for my debut. Thank you so much for having me, you guys.
You are most welcome. We are glad to have you here.
And there's an episode that I know you also want to talk about, so you will probably be back.
Yes.
What is your relationship with the show, the phenomenon, the cultural nightmare that is Glee?
Yes, very good question. So I was in high school when Glee was first airing, and I was really into choir and band. I was like a music nerd in high school, and I was also very queer, very, very queer. And Glee was kind of right up my alley in both of those senses. And my senior year of high school, a bunch of choir kids made a Glee club, like an unofficial Glee club in my high school, and I was actually a part of it for a little while, and I did a Rocky Horror performance with that, and I was part of a Rent performance, both which were not officially allowed to be part of the my school's theater department because of the content of both of those musicals being a little too racy, but we performed at a talent show and it was pretty fun. Since I've graduated high school like a decade plus ago and have gotten older, I have since really not enjoyed Glee as much. I remember, it's so funny, I've listened to a few of the Gleeboot episodes for season 4, and I myself was another one of those people who stopped watching when season 4 started. So I really it was like seasons 1 through 3 were my jam, and then I kind of just let it drop off the face of the earth and didn't go back until I think the final episode or the final 2 episodes. So I had kind of a falling out with Glee, but I enjoyed it and was really entertained by it when I was kind of age of the Glee. What are they called? The Glee Club. What's their special name?
The Gleeks or the New Directions?
The Gleeks, New Directions. That's what I'm thinking of. Yep.
Yeah.
So you watched seasons 1 through 3 and then skipped until the last 2 episodes, and you watched the last 2.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Because I heard some things about certain couples with the finale that I was really, really excited about. And so I decided to just rewatch, or not rewatch, but just actually I did do a little rewatch to jog my memory, but then just watched the finale, and that was it. I was happy with that.
Yeah.
All I needed, really.
I hear the finale is pretty stands on its own.
Yes.
Yeah.
The finale was
Interesting.
I honestly didn't even feel like I needed to watch any of the other seasons that I had skipped. Like going from the prime of seasons 1, 2, and 3 to the finale part, 2-part episode was totally fine. It was all good.
Yeah.
Cool.
We'll see what happens when we get to that, because I have not seen the finale yet.
I will also mention, so one of the things that I do with myself, I'm an adjunct professor of screenwriting and film, and that has since made me extremely critical of TV and film. So I will say, going back and watching this now with my seasoned, more educated, experienced eyes, I had so many more critiques than I think I would have way back when I was like enjoying this show as just pure entertainment.
Mm-hmm. Which I think it is that way with the hosts as well. Cullen,
Yes,
Hannah, and I
yes.
are like
Yeah.
we're extremely critical. You may or may not have noticed this.
I know, especially with Hannah not being here, like we need to kind of ramp up the criticism for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hannah always has some great criticisms.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, her takes I always agree with. It's excellent.
she always takes notes. I did not. I have never taken notes, and I probably will not ever take notes. But it's very fresh in my mind today because
Nice.
I forgot that I had to watch it, and I watched it about right before this podcast started. Right before.
Excellent.
Yep.
Excellent. Very fresh.
So, Nick, did you take the BuzzFeed quizzes?
I did, in fact, take the BuzzFeed quizzes, and I found my results very hilarious. my Glee character, the character that I am, is Quinn, and
Okay.
I'm actually all for that. I
Yeah.
kind of like Quinn. I really thought that she was super misunderstood, and I enjoyed her development. I mean, again, I only watched seasons 1 through 3 and the finale, but she went through a lot of stuff in seasons 1 through 3. So honestly, I was perfectly happy with that result. My Glee boyfriend, however, is Finn, which I think is hilarious. He's really not my type. And especially being Quinn, like that's just awkward. I will say that I personally shipped Quinn and oh my god, Leah Michelle's character, the main
Rachel?
character. Rachel,
Yeah.
thank you. I personally shipped that when especially in I think seasons 2 and 3. So, Finn is the next best thing, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Brittany, who you know and has been on the podcast, is a big Faberry shipper.
Yes, that's right. Faberry, totally.
Yeah.
I was really like Glee was one of the first super queer shows that I was exposed to as a young person, and especially just having like the queer storylines so apparent and clear and obvious. Like it was something, there's not a lot of subtext in Glee. It's very on the nose. It's very
it's definitely
in your face. Yeah, weird. And so I think the closest thing that I had gotten beforehand was maybe Degrassi. But even then, like having the different queer relationships and queer characters that exist even without being part of a ship. I know that was big for Kurt, like in the first season, first couple seasons, I think. So yeah, just definitely a fan of those dynamics.
Yeah. And so what are we drinking today? I have not eaten anything today, so I'm not drinking anything today because that would not be a good idea.
Perhaps water.
Eat your food.
Or a nice protein shake, I would recommend.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That would be good, yeah. I probably should be drinking water because I've been drinking all weekend, courtesy of being with a group of friends that I haven't seen in forever. So we kind of let loose. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, this depends on all how you look on at it. I found this delicious looking cider in the fridge.
Ooh.
It's Founders Brewing Company Rubius Raspberry Ale.
Oh my.
And it's really, really good.
Nice.
So I'm only drinking one, but I am drinking it.
I broke into this bottle of wine last night when I was watching, this episode of Glee, and it really, really helped.
Yeah.
This is a California wine, so I'm, kind of shouting out to you guys. And that's it's a red wine. It's Giguere Estate. And I will say I don't normally drink California wine because I'm a snob. And in the Finger Lakes, upstate New York, there's a huge winery business, and that's where I live. It's my hometown area. So normally I get local wines, but I decided to go with California for this weekend.
Ooh, thanks. Thanks for the shout out.
Absolutely.
Is it does it stand up at all to the wine that you normally drink?
Very good. I'm very surprised. I did take a recommendation from the liquor store owner, and surprise, he knows his stuff.
Yay, good.
Yep.
So this episode, we have it's called Feuds. And so everything is a feud. We have Blaine versus Schue, Will versus Finn, Santana versus Brody, and Ryder versus Unique / everyone.
Yes, yeah. I actually was a fan of the way they set this episode up. I thought it was very easy to follow the storylines. Sometimes they can be super convoluted, but I found this one easy to follow. So I liked the way that it was set up.
That's interesting. I was so not familiar with the season 4 cast, a lot of the newer characters, that I just totally this is what, like the 14th episode of season 4 or something like that, 12th episode, somewhere kind of middle.
I feel like it's either 14 or 15 or maybe
something
16.
like that, but it's
I don't
not
know.
it's
in
not
the teens.
at the beginning.
16.
And so I was like, who are some of these people? Why do they look like some of the cast from last season? And then I realized, oh, we're doing the token thing where we got rid of a large Black woman and we replaced her with another curvy Black woman. We replaced a lot of the character types, and I was like, oh Glee, you done it. You sure did do it.
Oh yeah, Glee, you sure did do it. That could be a motto of this podcast. They did stuff. It happened. So I'm going to talk about the Will and Finn stuff first.
Okay.
And then, because in order for Santana and Brody to make sense, we need to get the Will and Finn stuff established.
Yeah.
So Artie and Blaine and Tina are holding an intervention for Will and Finn because Will is being extra hard on Finn, he's making him get them all lattes, and I'm like, with whose money?
The school
Probably
board.
Finn's money.
Finn is an unpaid volunteer.
That's why it's if I was trying to get back at someone, I would make them buy my lattes, especially if I knew they didn't have a job. You got to make it count.
Oof.
And picking
Don't
up.
cross me, friends.
Picking up his dry cleaning, and it's not that you think these vests are clean, it's that you think it's okay to turn in subpar work.
Yeah.
And then Finn is freaking out because Will is see, Ryder's so great, a great singing voice and talent on the football field aren't mutually exclusive. And Finn's like, I'm just not just gonna sit here letting you fake compliment Ryder so you can get back at me. So they're like,
doesn't he kick over a music stand?
yeah.
Yes, he does. He's got some really aggressive behaviors in this episode.
Yes, he does.
Finn has always had a lot of aggression that we've talked about this on the podcast before that isn't challenged or it's seen as normal, and this happens on a lot of teen dramas with male leads.
Meanwhile, when Santana does something that's considered aggressive or dramatic, we got to spend a whole lot of time breaking that apart. Just
Yeah.
saying.
The slap.
I am Team Santana every moment of my life. So
Honestly, it's been like, I feel like it's been so long since Finn has like exhibited those aspects of his character. Like I almost forgot about them, or at the very least thought that he had matured. So I was a little surprised. They brought that back.
I guess
Yeah.
it's trying to show that what Mr. Schue is doing is like really hit the height of his what he can take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mr. Schue is being a Hollywood exec.
Mhm.
And just another reason for us to hate him.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they're like, the theme this week is feuds. You have to do a feuding number, and like work out all your aggression in a song. So then they're like practicing or like thinking about what they want to do. And Finn is like, I'm really sorry. Just talk straight with me. Like, because Will is kind of giving him the silent treatment. And then Will is like, yeah, I'll be straight with you. You flunked out of the army. You didn't have anywhere to go. You lost your girlfriend. I took pity on you and I gave you this job.
Gaslighting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote this down. Schue gaslighting Finn is disgusting.
Mm-hmm. It
Like,
was really
Really
bad.
dislike that.
It was so bad. And it was just like, it's one thing to be honest with someone. It's another thing to like seek to hurt that person.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And like, if this whole time it was just pity, then that makes Schue like a bad person the whole time.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Like, and that's not the reason he gave initially.
No.
So he's just sucks.
Yeah.
Yes. Agreed.
He's I don't know if we're supposed to, I'm not sure who we're supposed to be rooting for at this point. Like it's supposed to be Finn, right? But I'm always so confused because she does all of these terrible things. And are we supposed to be like, oh, he's still mad about this kiss, so that's okay that he's doing this? I don't quite understand.
That's a really interesting point that you bring up, because I honestly, now that you say that, Alyssa, I can't really tell who the main character or like duo protagonists of this episode are really supposed to be, right? Obviously it's an
Mhm.
ensemble, but usually we have sort of centric characters that have arcs in each episode, and I kind of don't know who that's supposed to be here.
Yeah. Not only like I liked the way that the feuds were because I could follow each storyline individually,
Yeah.
but they were it was interestingly set up because the perspectives, there is not one
Yeah.
that is like very clear that you should be on this side of this person, except maybe the Santana one,
Right.
Santana and Brody. But I feel like the other ones are all very inconclusive.
Mhm. Yeah.
So at least in like I know whose side I'm on, but I don't think the episode was clear about that.
Right. I agree.
Yeah, because like at the end of the day, I'm on Finn's side in that Finn did the wrong thing by kissing Emma, but if all Will has to do is be like, hey, I'm uncomfortable being around you.
Yeah.
I think you should leave initially instead of torturing him.
Yeah. Will has some issues. Like he needs to I don't know how else to explain it. Like he just needs to
Stop.
either let it go, and if he can't let it go, then he needs to not be friends anymore.
I also like I didn't really know where I wanted to bring this up, but I'm just going to do it now. The dynamics between the teachers and their students / former students, former like just a year graduated ago, students is like super inappropriate throughout
Yes.
all
Oh,
of
for
Glee,
sure.
but especially this episode. And like as a teacher, and also I'm now like a teen advocate for middle high school age kids. And so I have sort of this relationship with adolescents as well as students, and it's like the dynamics that are going on all levels here with Schue, with Blaine, and
So
Sue, like they're all super inappropriate, and a lot of times they're done for comedy or drama, right? Like one or
Right.
the other.
Mhm.
But I had a super hard time through this episode specifically at like suspending my disbelief and putting aside my own personal like this is unrealistic, this is inappropriate, and just kind of accepting it as this is just normal within the show. Had a super hard time with that.
Yeah. I mean, they're always like that, but I feel like it
Mhm.
gets especially bad in this episode
yeah.
Yeah,
because
and it's
it's on
little things,
display.
like super little things, like the way that Sue is commenting on Blaine's like romantic life, and is it Becky like smacks his butt, like all sorts of weird things like that. That's like, this is such a tiny little detail that's played for comedy or drama, and it's like awkward.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, at one point, Will says to Finn, "You broke the code of a brother."
Yeah, and it's like,
There's always going to be a power dynamic because you're older,
Yes.
you're the teacher. Like, even if you become friends afterwards, like, I'll still talk to my old professors and stuff. Like, there's always a dynamic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And isn't Finn kind of employed by Will, Schue, whatever we want to call him, douchebag? Isn't he kind of employed by him?
Not really, because he's
Okay.
not getting paid. He's a volunteer, but Will
I
is
guess
the one
though,
who
within
introduced
the
him
school
to this
system,
position.
like Will is his superior in terms of the,
Yeah.
the way that
like
position
a supervisor more. Yeah, I guess.
So
Yeah.
very awkward, very inappropriate, but whatever. That's Glee. Glee done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because so after Will like tears into Finn, Finn is just like, "Oh, okay, I see how it is. I didn't know it was that. That's how you felt." He's like really hurt by it naturally.
Mhm.
And then so they're gonna do this number. And the number that they do is boy band mashup of Bye 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 and I Want It That Way.
They had this whole introduction about how these two bands were like fighting for supremacy in the like early 2000s or something.
Yeah.
What, 90s? I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah, and I think
okay,
that is
this
true. Like, I kind of vaguely remember that, mostly because I had a hard time telling these two bands apart.
okay? Is it In Sync and Backstreet Boys?
Yeah.
Okay, I was like
Yeah, you got
really racking my brain there. I was like, okay, what two bands are they talking about? 'Cause
Yep.
they never explicitly say. So
Yeah. And shout out to the fact that I was in a beauty pageant in college, and for my talent portion, I did a boy band lip sync
Nice.
medley featuring both these songs.
Yes.
Performed it in front of my parents, my boss, and my girlfriend at the time.
Well done.
Yeah. It was a fan favorite.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I learned the Bye 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 dance for it.
It's iconic.
okay.
Also, now that you mentioned the Bye 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 dance, did they even do the true Bye 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 dance in this episode? Like, I didn't really notice the hands going and the arms so much as the like no strings attached stuff.
Yeah, there was
Well-
like a puppeteering thing going on.
Right, that's from the
music video.
which I
That's
thought
from
was
the
actually
music
really
video?
cool. That was a
it
pretty
was.
cool
It
callback.
was really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think they fully did the Bye 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 dance.
Right. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. We're pulling from like people's nostalgia of that music video / the like album cover, I guess, if people were only vaguely familiar with them from their album. But yeah, I mean, I liked it, but we're not at song time. We're not at favorite.
But to be fair, I feel like there were a lot of good contenders this week. So
this was actually a pretty good music week.
I feel that. During this entire scene, though, they kept going. So there was the one group was doing Bye Bye Bye, and the other one was doing the other song. What was that?
I Want It That Way.
I Want It That Way. Yeah, and then they would have cut scenes that were obviously not actually happening between Finn and Schue, where they were just like fighting each other. And it was very confusing for me.
That was very weird. Non-linear / like alternate universe fantasy.
Yes.
Jumping around. I actually had written down like, OMG, they hugged, but then I guess that wasn't real. And
that was the point in which I was like,
confusing.
Yeah.
They hugged, and then Schue refuses to hug Finn after that. And I was like, wait. What?
Right, and like whose fantasy was that, right? Like that kind of brings up the idea of perspective again, and who's the main character, whose point of view are we in? Like I'm guessing maybe that was supposed to be Finn's perspective because he seemed like he was the most okay with this relationship mending, but again, none of the classic film messaging semiotics were happening to tell us that was what we were supposed to think, so it just ended up being kind of garbled.
The editing and camera work in Glee is very confusing at times. Very confusing.
There's a special shout out to a piece of editing from this episode that I will mention later, so hold that thought for sure.
Yeah, no, I just remember being like, wait, so what is the reality and what is the fantasy? Because we're already in a musical, and in musicals, there's already kind of like a furry line between especially in Glee, they're not always clear of what's diegetic and what's non-diegetic music.
A furry line? Are you talking about a fuzzy line?
Fuzzy line. It's furry, it's fuzzy.
Furry, fuzzy.
Like a Muppet, like a Sesame Street character.
There's a Muppet line.
There's a Muppet line. Yeah, so I was just like, what is happening? And then Sam at the end is like, the love on the stage is obvious. You two bros just need to hug it out. And then Finn is like, I'm down. And then Will is like, I'm sorry, I'd like to, but I can't.
Yeah. Get over yourself, bro. You are the adult. Like,
yes, he's definitely not acting like the adult in this relationship right now at this point. It's embarrassing.
And it's not the reason, Finn isn't the reason Emma left him at the altar.
No, I don't. It's just frustrating.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing and frustrating. And
Will, you are embarrassing yourself.
Yes.
Stop now.
Well, I mean, I know this isn't what they intended, but he feels like a codependent, emotionally abusive friend.
Oh yeah. The gaslighting, the like, my happiness revolves around your the things that you can do for me, right? Like it's very very problematic. And I honestly, like, I don't know if that ever gets resolved. Like I said, I skipped through all of these seasons, so I have no idea if that ever gets resolved or talked about. Probably not. Like, I mean,
feel like not.
Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, it seems like something.
We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out next time on Gleeboot.
Yeah, and this is where I feel like I wonder if there's like a division in the writers' room where some of the writers have picked up on the fact that people hate Will, and so they're writing him as really hateable.
Yeah.
But then like Glee the show can't admit that like the character that was its initial protagonist sucks, so they're like, we'll make him suck, but we'll never like call him out on it.
That's such an interesting point. I feel like that's probably very, very true.
And also, it's the worst decision that they could have made. If you realize something and you're gonna approach it from that perspective, just 100% do it. Like, there's no halfway, okay? You just got to do it.
Yep.
It's so weird being in a different location than Alyssa while recording, because I'm used to like sideways looking at Alyssa's perspective, and it's weird to like look her face on as she's discussing things. It's just because I'm so used to looking at Hannah face on while discussing this stuff.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's weird how something being slightly different makes this, like, doing this podcast feel like entirely different for me.
Yes,
Change in scenery.
very true. I'm looking at the background of you, and I'm like, that's my room.
Yeah, I'm sure
I'm
that's weird.
currently not in California at this moment. I'm visiting in the Midwest, so
Yeah. So Finn basically takes a hint and decides to leave. Will is kind of making him leave. So he's like packing up his desk. And Marley comes by to give him a thank you card and to say thank you. And I would potentially really love the Finn and Marley relationship, because there's some great groundwork there. But what's missing is when Finn should have stood up for her when people were blaming her for having an eating disorder.
yeah.
And if Finn
Yeah.
had done that, then this scene would just hit, like, it hits, but it would hit so much more.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
I thought it was really cute that she was there to give him a thank you card. Like, that feels like a very high school thing to do to for a teacher that you like. And then the rest of it didn't quite work for me, because I feel like they aren't very close. But I think, like you were saying, if they did have that connection where Finn stood up for her, I think that would have helped this scene a lot. So
Yeah, because what they have is that she was the only one that didn't abandon Glee Club when it was canceled, and they like worked
Yeah.
together to find a solution.
mhm.
So we have that, but it could have been so much stronger.
And
For sure.
Marley is one of these season 4 new cast members, correct? Who
Yeah.
is-
Yes.
I actually kind of liked her. Like, this was probably my first time meeting her as a character, and I had no problems with her. Like, a lot of the other characters, I was like, who is this? But she was kind of filling in as a sort of Rachel, like a
Yep.
sort of Rachel type character.
She's the Rachel replacement.
Yeah,
Except she's
maybe not
better
as
than
like
Rachel.
intense and
Yeah.
driven. But I mean, I was like, okay, I can get behind this character. This is all right.
Yeah. Actually, initially, one of the problems I had with her is that I had no problems with her because she was perfect.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a really good thing to keep in mind. Is like, is this character totally unflawed? Like, are they
She
a
has-
realistic person? Right?
She has since exhibited some flaws.
Yeah. She seems like a pretty all right character. So
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I like Marley, and she's definitely like a more likable Rachel.
Yeah.
So she's like, can I speak freely? And Finn's like, yeah, you're not my commanding officer or whatever. Or I'm not your commanding officer. And she's like, I think you need to really grow a pair. And she's like, none of this moping around. Like, I think you're a natural leader. I think you're gifted to be a teacher. And he's like, I don't have a thing called a teaching degree. And she's like, well, then go get one.
yeah.
Like,
Which everyone everywhere was saying since the first time we saw Finn in a school.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I think that's a very, even though it's like a very dramatized light bulb moment, right? I honestly think that is super accurate to how real life works, in which like oftentimes we are following a certain path that we don't realize our options and the best sort of route to take until somebody else points it out for us and says like, hey, you're really good at this, you should consider XYZ. So I honestly, like, I thought that was pretty cool. And I as a teacher too, I was like, oh, cool. All right. Like, again, I don't know a lot of what happens for the rest of the show, so I don't know if he actually becomes a teacher. But I was like, sweet, good for you, Finn. Like, I guess my Glee boyfriend, you go be a teacher.
It was a pretty cute moment. I liked the line. It was very dramatic, but
Oh, yeah,
I
on the
thought it
nose.
was cute. And I remember thinking, well, duh, in, come on.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was a cute moment.
I think it's really interesting that Schue, who's supposed to be his mentor, is like tearing him down, and this random teenage girl
Yeah.
is the one
Yeah.
to like support him and be like, you have potential beyond what Mr. Schue sees in you.
Mhm.
Because Finn is like, well, Mr. Schue sees me as a loser, so I must be a loser. And Marley's basically saying, like, don't let Mr. Schue define who you are.
Right, because at one point, Finn is like very distraught about the fact that he is completely defined by Mr. Schue and the high school that he's already graduated from. And basically Marley like diffuses that situation and that line of thinking for him. So
It's honestly really accurate that like it is the students, who make that type of work meaningful. Like I would say anything that a student said to me, like, you are the best teacher ever, would mean way more to me than if my colleague, like a fellow teacher, said that to me.
for sure.
So I honestly, like, it did definitely like hit home, and it was I thought it was pretty accurate.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, I think overall this was like a really good scene. And I'm excited for where it takes Finn in the future, but not excited for where he decided to go.
Oh, yeah.
Are we gonna hit this after the Santana?
Yeah, let's go through
Okay,
Santana.
Okay.
That's everything with Will and Finn, right? I'm not missing anything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Mhm.
So Santana,
Love of my life.
like Allyssa, does not trust Brody.
Trust no one. Although I have to say Hannah's reading of the situation was spot on.
Yeah.
Did she predict this or something?
The minute I saw Brody, I said that he was sketchy. Later on, Hannah like predicted the exact profession that he was in.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I met this character. This was the first time for me meeting this character was in this episode, and I was like, who is this basic boy? I have no real interest. He's not even that cute. He's very basic.
Yeah.
Whoever this is, I don't need to be seeing him on my screen that much.
We meet him episode 1 of season 4, right? So
Yeah.
he's been here the entire time, basically.
Yeah. And this storyline
Very uncomfortable. Very, very uncomfortable.
does not treat the profession of sex workers with dignity.
No. Good point.
Yes. Which, and we'll talk about this more, but basically the way I would sum it up is the problem is that Brody isn't telling Rachel, that his sexual partner, that he is a sex worker.
Yeah.
And which, if you're going to be doing that, you need to let all your sexual partners know, like for their health, for intimacy and confidentiality, like for all that.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. But the show makes it seem like the problem is that he is a sex worker.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. I was really surprised because, again, like, I don't know this character. And so this was really a big part of the opening of this episode was his like steamy scenes with this rando lady.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the song.
And the elevator and like the hotel sex. And I was like, wait, is this a thing that happens in Glee? Is Glee this awkwardly steamy? Because like, wow,
surprisingly, season 4 has had a lot of
very surprising. And I was like, all right, this is interesting. And dude was like singing throughout it too, so it was wild. But yeah, that was basically my introduction to this character, and very much painted a picture of like, all right, they're trying to show this as like a sleazy guy who's doing this behind everyone's backs. And yeah, I really did not feel good about that.
As someone trying to make it in the city and who's paid very little, I don't think Brody is that far off. Like he's just trying to make it. Like the problem is he's not telling Rachel, because it's her business because they're in a relationship. But like you got to do what you got to do to make it and like eat and like pay your bills.
That's a really good point. I did appreciate the sort of like working class perspective that brought in, because I really think that class is something that is missing from Glee quite often, and is kind of like a hidden area of identity, diversity, background that is just like not touched upon.
Like in the first season, it was brought up a little bit, like because like Quinn's family is very wealthy, and then Finn's family was not, and then Finn's family was taking in Quinn, and she like couldn't afford to go to the doctors, and like so it was touched on, but I think you're right that's definitely a very missing part of Glee. I think because Hollywood's exploits class differences and doesn't want to look at class because that will make them think of their behavior.
For sure.
Rachel had a pregnancy scare, and goes to the doctor with Santana and finds out that she's not pregnant, and she says she's like false alarm, and Santana's like, you can't just like move on from this. You need to think about your choices and what you're doing and what you're risking. Starting with donkey face is what she calls Brody.
Yes.
So Rachel is just like, no, like I'm fine. Like I don't need to think about it. Like me and Brody are happy. And then we cut to Brody in this hotel, and this other worker is like, hey, I've seen you here a lot. And Brody's like, I'm not like you. I'm only here because I need to make money for school. And the guy is like, I'm here to make money too, bitch. Like, and then they sing Marina and the Diamonds, How to Be a Heartbreaker, which is an interesting choice because that is a song from a woman's perspective on how to flirt with a bunch of men and like lead them on. And now it's a song about like a male prostitute. So it's one of those Glee where they're like, this is slightly adjacent, we'll make it fit. And then you're it doesn't really fit.
That's a really interesting, like, I would say something that I often don't pay attention to with Glee is the connotation of like the original lyricist / performer of the music versus who is singing it in the show. And that's I didn't know that this was a Marina Queen song, but I now that you've pointed that out, like that is very interesting.
Yeah, because they have Rachel sing part of it because it just really wouldn't make sense for Brody to sing it because it's about like girls, we do whatever it will take because we don't want our hearts to break, because the song How to Be a Heartbreaker is like about putting up those walls.
I wonder if it's supposed to be positing that in the lens of the sex work that like we don't get close with these people, right? It's like just money, which is again really dehumanizing the work. And bringing it back to what you had mentioned previously, Cullen, with the problematic lens that the show is positing that profession.
So they get in an elevator and then they get on stairs. I'm like, why did you take the elevator? We're just gonna go up more stairs.
They got off at the wrong level.
I did not even notice it went from an elevator to a stairwell. Yep. Okay.
I'm just gonna pretend like they clicked the wrong floor number, and then they were like, "Oh, we got to play this off because we're being all hot and heavy romantic. So like, let's just get off here and take the stairs."
That would be the worst turn on ever.
Honestly, hilarious though.
So they sing How to Be a Heartbreaker, and then Santana is all like, I don't like this Brody character, and Rachel's like, you have to like leave him alone. And then Santana goes to Niata, where Brody is the TA for Cassandra July, Kate Hudson, who I doubt will ever see Kate Hudson again. And Santana gets in and he's like, what are you doing here? How did you even get in here? And she's like, don't apply logic to Lopez.
The one time
her.
that they question someone just walking into a classroom, it's in college.
Good point. Yeah.
It's the easy, you can easily do that at a college campus. You know, assuming that they don't have like the cards where you have to slide them to get into the buildings.
Which is New York, so I feel like they might.
Yeah, they might, honestly. That was
Yeah.
a big thing in like
Yeah,
Emerson.
they probably should, but
Yeah.
also you can just watch a door and slip in right behind someone and it's fine.
Either way, I do not put it past Santana, and I fully believe that she has her ways.
Oh, for sure. Applying to logic to Lopez is something no one needs to do. Like,
Yeah. Let's all remember when she taped that mic to her under boob.
yes, yes.
Queen shit.
So Santana is like, I don't like you, you're shady, you're up to something, and I'm gonna confront you with this Paula Abdul song, Cold Hearted Snake. And she's like, dancers, if you want to join in, like you can, like if you're a dancer, like you know this music in your bones. And it's just like, okay, Glee.
Yep.
And so she performs an elaborate dance number with these dancers at
On
Brody.
scaffolding?
Yes. Very
Scaffolding
complex.
on the wheel.
I'm going to assume that it was
Yeah.
locked, that the wheels were locked on that.
No, they were
Because,
pushing it around half the time.
Oh, true. Somebody was very carefully choreographing, like, okay, now I unlock them, now I lock them, now I unlock them, now I lock them.
Yes, yes.
I kind of enjoyed this, but I also had the perspective of like, okay, she's singing to a like straight male character. She herself, Santana herself, is a lesbian, surrounded by female dancers. I like was very careful to, okay, they're all female dancers doing sort of their like sexy dance, but I was like, this is an interesting thing going on here. Like she's in a way, I almost felt like she was being like sexy for herself, which I kind of loved, because obviously she's not trying to attract him, she's more trying to get his attention. But that was like so interesting to me. I had some sort of feeling about it, and I can't quite put it to words.
I was actually taken out by this specifically because I didn't feel like there was any reason for her to be sexy during this scene.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
Yeah, so the problem here, I think, is that I was taken out by it because it was very obviously, in my opinion, like this was the male gaze sexualizing Santana for the audience.
Right, and it's like,
And
who
for
is
no
she
other
being sexy
reason.
for when we know that she's not attracted to this guy? Like, we know that. So then what is the point of this? Like, that's kind of why I say maybe she's doing it for herself. Like, girl broke into a dance like and singing class. Like, why not just bring all of the hot dancers and do a little number with them? You know, like, go queen, I guess.
I wish that she had been like more aggressive.
Yeah,
because
totally.
we know that she's an aggressive person and we've seen her be aggressive in a sing-off before, and I wanted her to bring Brody down, and I didn't really get that from this scene.
Yeah,
Like,
she
at
just kind
all.
of danced around.
Yeah.
I know there's been a lot of discussion of Santana's character as a sort of aggressive Latina stereotype, and so I wonder at what point the show, because I do know that the show became aware of that at a certain point and might have like dialed that back a degree, but I do kind of wonder like if that was ever taken in mind with things like this, and it kind of missed the mark on being still fairly aggressive, like personality-wise, right? But then trading the sort of aggression with like sexiness and male gazy type stuff, which was a little bit weird, a little bit awkward, strange.
Yeah. And this is one of the few times that I think like I personally would have been okay with a more aggressive approach because she's protecting her friends.
Totally.
And I just think they, like you said, they just took a wrong approach.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because she's like, stay away from Rachel. I want you to move out of this apartment.
Yeah.
And so then Santana gets back and she's like, hey, I got a job bartending. And I'm like, can you bartend when you're 19? I don't know.
Yes, you can. Well, and they're in New York. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
As somebody who bartended at literally 19 in New York State, absolutely.
So you were the expert. You were the appropriate expert for my question. So yes. So she's like, yeah, I got this job bartending. And Kurt and Rachel are like, sit down, we need to have a talk. Did you confront Brody at Niata with a Paula Abdul song?
I love how Kurt just appeared. He just like, this was like his only scene in the entire episode, I think. And he was just there.
He lives there.
Right, but it was like he wasn't there before, and now he's just there for this scene.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, hi. Nice to see you, buddy.
And they're like, you can't do that. Like, we go to school there. And she's like, that's the best performance that place has seen in years.
Fair.
Like, yeah, we saw their secret Bring Him Home sing off and the boring Chicago dance off. So we
Adam's
know this
Apple?
is
No.
yeah, the Adams. This literally is the best Niata performance in the show. Better than Oops, I Did It Again. Yeah, I'm gonna say it. Yeah. So they're like, we are gonna ask you to leave because you're crossing boundaries. Like, Brody was here first. You need to respect that, and we're gonna have to ask you to find a new place to live. And Santana was like, well, I just ran into Lena Dunham and she said I could crash with her. So I'm just going to do that. But like, you're making a big mistake. Like, Brody's shady. And she just starts picking up stuff. And Rachel's like, she took my comforter. And Kurt's like, bitch took my pillow. So yeah, Santana storms off. But then this plot isn't quite over yet because Brody is coming into a hotel room for work and he's like, Vicky, and then it turns around and it's Santana.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, wait, I can explain. And she's like, don't explain to me, explain to my friend. And Finn is there.
He walks out of the hotel bathroom.
He was sitting there in that bathroom waiting for him to come in. Like,
Yes.
This is gonna be great. This is gonna be a great reveal. I'm gonna look so great. And Santana was sitting there on the bed, facing away from the door, listening for Brody. They were all set up ready for this.
So
They're
dramatic.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
we're gonna
I
look
love
sick. This is great.
When Finn walked out, I was like, oh my God, they have him wearing all black.
I didn't even notice that. I was
It was
expecting
really
it to be
funny.
Rachel, so when it was Finn, I was like, "Oh shit, okay."
I also thought it was going to be Rachel. And then when Finn walked out, I was like,
yeah,
Finn looks scary.
and he
He's
sure
wearing
was
all
scary.
primary colors.
Yeah.
And
He-
he's not anymore. He's a scary person.
And he is a scary person because he's like, I want you to stay away from Rachel, never talk to her again.
Stay away from my
Future
wife.
wife.
I hated that
Oh.
line. I was like, oh no.
Oh,
Who
so
wrote that?
awkward.
Oh
This is-
God.
Nobody says that. That's so gross, buddy.
No.
Oh, Finn, I'm
Ugh.
so sorry.
I would have been like slightly okay with this scene, except for that line.
Mhm.
And I'm only
Yeah.
okay with that scene is because two guys decked out in all black were being very emo and fighting each other. And you know what? It's a TV show. I can like what I like.
I really don't like the very, very common like two guys fighting aggressively over a woman storyline trope thing. That's so tired. And yes, this is 2013.
They haven't-
Okay. But also like
It was tired in like 1959.
yeah, absolutely.
Before that, I think that this has been in the works since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
So,
For the Iliad.
so literally,
Yeah,
I
true,
mean,
true.
isn't this like a thing that happens during mating season, like with rams and everything? Like, literally, evolution has made this a thing.
Yeah, there's some
Sorry.
subtext of this in Rudolph. So
Oh, for sure.
Shit.
2 men fighting over 1 female.
yeah, Bambi shit.
Yup.
Yeah, the Stay Away From Me feature, which makes you think of an episode where we had Scott on when Finn was like, "You're always gonna be my girlfriend," and I was like, "I hate this, but I also find it sexy at the same time." This was like the full coming to fruit of like, this is not sexy. This is toxic.
It's the possession that's like, he clearly has a lot more like emotion at stake than she does. Like there's it's kind of sad to think of like he still feels that way about her when she is trying to move on and like does a fairly decent job at that. It's honestly kind of sad for Finn.
Yeah. And I feel like we're reaching stalker vibes here. Like my future wife, that is the most terrible line they could have picked. If he said, "Stay away from Rachel, stay away from her," like at the very least, I'd be like, okay.
Even if he said like, "Stay away from the woman I love," like super on the nose, but he's not putting any sense of possession. Like my wife, my partner, right? It's like, whoa. That you do realize, buddy, that's like a like joint thing. Like you both have to agree upon that together in holy matrimony, buddy, which has not occurred and will not, sorry to say.
Yeah, it's really, it's like he's learning this toxicity from Mr. Schue.
Ooh,
yeah.
True,
and this is not what Marley meant when she said grow a pair. Like Marley was like, move on, go to college, like get this teaching degree, like you're a great leader, you have a lot to give to the world. And this is him not focusing on what he can give to the world, but focusing on like Santana is dragging him back into his past, into like his past wounds.
I fully expected him next episode to be like working on getting a teaching degree. Fully. Not this. I did not expect this.
Yeah. That's interesting that you kind of bring it full circle like that, Cullen, because I kind of didn't even realize until you mentioned that like that is the way that he interpreted grow a pair. Like, and it's unfortunate because he is emulating Will, and it's unfortunate that he views Will as somebody to emulate, you know, like that's really sad for him.
Yeah. And it really ties into this show's view of what masculinity is and what a lot of teen dramas, how they view masculinity. And it's a little tired to say it, but it's toxic the way they view it.
For sure.
Which, speaking of toxic masculinity, should we talk about Ryder?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yes, please. Let's talk about Ryder and Unique.
This storyline was really, really interesting. Really surprised me.
So Jake and Marley, Jake is still mad at Marley because Ryder kissed her, and Marley's like, what was I supposed to do, sprint?
And Jake is another rando of this season that I had no clue who this was. And I'm like, okay, I guess this is a new cast member.
Well, both of them too, because you hadn't met, you've never met Ryder or Jake or
Marley.
Riley. No, Marley.
Yeah.
Wow.
Miley.
And not gonna lie, I totally thought that I had met Unique before, but Unique is not Mercedes.
Correct.
And so I was very
Although
wrong
Brittany
about
would not
that.
be able to tell you that. Brittany
And I was like,
still thinks
where's
that Unique
Mercedes?
is
That's not Mercedes. Oh, fuck.
Mhm.
Oops.
Yeah.
Brittany wasn't even in this episode.
No, Brittany was
I love
missing.
Miss and Brittany, and she was not here. It was very sad. They mentioned her. They did mention her.
Yeah.
So she was there in spirit.
So I do, when she's like, what was I supposed to do? Like, she said, like, run away from his lips, and I wish there was a scene of her Naruto running away from. It's just like, no. And he's like, you're supposed to not make him think it's okay for him to kiss you, which we talked about how they were blaming Marley for this last week.
Yep.
And they're blaming the woman again.
Yep.
For Ryder's actions. And she's like, I admit I like that you're both crushing on me. But like, I won't lead him on anymore. And Jake is like, you need to ice him out. And she's like, he's a good friend. I can't do that. So they're going through a rough patch. Unique comes up to Ryder and is like, hey, I don't like what you're doing. I don't like that you mess things up with Jake and Marley. And like, we are not cool. And then he's like, chill out, dude. And she's like, I'm not a dude. And he's like, but you are. And she's like, I'm a strong, or like, what are you? And she's like, I'm a strong, proud Black woman, which the show has always been very iffy as to what Unique's actual identity is.
Yeah.
This
And
is
this
the
is-
first time that
They spell it out.
Yeah. It's very,
Yeah.
very
This
defined.
was really interesting. Like I said, I was not super familiar with Unique, and even throughout this entire episode, I wasn't quite sure what we were supposed to take away from Unique's character, but I kind of liked it. Like, I actually was I had to keep checking, like, oh yeah, this was 2013. This episode aired in 2013, because I was really surprised at again, because it's Glee, it's on the nose. It's a musical show. It's on the nose. It's very dramatized, but there was some kind of I appreciated the language that was used, like talking about Unique's truth and different things of that nature. I will say that at first, I thought Unique was being portrayed as like a non-binary character, gender fluid character.
I think at
And
first
it wasn't
she
until
was.
it wasn't until
Yeah.
kind of doing some more Wikipedia sleuthing that I discovered kind of otherwise.
Yeah, Glee has not always been very clear.
Yeah. Which, like, that's fair, because honestly, gender is a spectrum. It doesn't have to be clear, but it was interesting coming at this as like, I didn't think I had met this character before. And we all, I think, gain these perceptions of people that we first meet. And I'm like, okay, from that first interaction, this is a non-binary character. But then to learn that she's not, that was really interesting. It was really kind of cool.
Yeah, I went into this episode fully expecting them to totally bungle the storyline.
Yeah.
And it was handled decently. It was pretty well. It was pretty good. Yeah. So they're like, so Artie is like arbitrating their like disagreement, and they're gonna do a feud, and they're gonna reference a feud that I didn't know existed, where Elton John called Madonna basically like a cheap whore or something, and that her career was over, and then eventually they made up. So they do a mashup of The Bitch Is Back and Dress You Up in My Love.
I think we should mention also the scenes with Ryder messaging
Katie.
Yes.
Yeah, because he's
so interesting.
Yeah.
Considering, like, so this was 2013, and at that point it's past the point of like earlier than that, in the late 90s and early 2000s, there was a lot of TV that would focus on the mysticism of like an online relationship and the sort of chat rooms and that kind of thing being like such a mysterious, sort of dangerous, sketchy, but exciting sort of place. And this was presented as there's still that element of mystery, but there's also like this is a person that I can be honest and truthful with, and
Yeah, like you can connect with
share
this
my
person.
exposition and my feelings to. And I think that's like a fairly decent portrayal of that kind of communication and relationship. But it was interesting considering how much more modern this episode was.
Mm-hmm.
So that he's messaging this girl named Katie about what's going on, and then after the mashup, they are like, okay, do you want to shake hands and be done? And Ryder's like, sure. And Unique's like, first say I'm a girl. And Ryder can't do it. He's like, one day you're a boy, one day you're a girl. What is it? Like, what bathroom do you even use?
This was so strange for me, I think, because of the time that we live in now, where like it doesn't compute for me, like why he wouldn't just be like, you're a girl.
I think like I was really surprised that this storyline was being touched upon in 2013 because, right, so as a trans person myself, I remember specifically 2013 is when Orange is the New Black aired, and that is kind of considered with Laverne Cox's character as being sort of the a big shift in trans representation and awareness in TV and a lot of media. And so this episode is happening at the same time. And I was kind of surprised. What was that, Alyssa?
Can you explain that storyline in Orange is the New Black?
Yeah, for sure. So Laverne Cox, Orange is the New Black is about a female prison, and Laverne Cox is a trans woman in real life who plays a trans woman character in Orange is the New Black. And it was really revolutionary for being a very, very open trans character who's played by a trans actress. And her character is not just her being trans, but that is like included as part of who she is, part of her identity. So it was really, really revolutionary, and it was considered like a big deal for really changing a lot of media and a lot of society from that point on in terms of trans awareness. It definitely, for me, was one of my first instances of seeing a positively represented trans character.
And this Glee episode was the same year?
Yeah, same year. And I didn't go super deep to see which came out first, but honestly, like, even if Orange is the New Black had come out a couple months before, like we know from our own perspective as writers, screenwriters, that this would have been in the works, you know, for a long time before it aired. So my guess is that this storyline with Unique was happening without a lot of knowledge of the sort of, I'm going to say, like, the trans revolution on TV that was pioneered by Laverne Cox. So it's super interesting to me that this is occurring in this episode, and that it is such 2013 to me still feels like such a long time ago. And it was honestly kind of surprising.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I do think it's very realistic for a Midwestern teenage boy to be like, I refuse to get this. I refuse to accept you. Like, this doesn't compute, you know? So, and I thought it was, in a way, it was brave of Glee to make a character we're supposed to kind of like do that.
Yeah.
And this kind of like, because high school and college, like when you're young, this is when you're challenging your worldview and you're changing. So it's nice for them to show like some people aren't always just born accepting. They have to like learn to become accepting of other people. And then so like,
it's probably better that they used a character that we liked.
I agree.
Totally. And then showing his arc in this episode, right, is like, then that's presenting a really positive message then, not only about his character, that he's learning and he's learning to be more respectful, but that since that is a likable character for the audience, that we can kind of then emulate that behavior in the real world.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And because Jake calls him out, he's like, "You're a douchebag in this room." And I'm like, in more places in this room, but okay. This room, we can be whatever we want to be, you know, like.
Yeah.
And then he's messaging Katie, Ryder, and he's like, you know, like, he's like, "I just don't get this. Like, I could dress up as the Easter Bunny and go around giving candy, and that wouldn't make me the Easter Bunny." And Katie's like, "Yeah, that'd make you crazy." But she's like, you know, like, this is Unique's truth. Like, who are you to say what Unique's gender is? Like, people don't know. Like, some people would say that we aren't friends because you never met, but you still feel like we're friends.
Yeah. That's I do actually really like the way the show presented that, because a lot of times the allegorical explaining that trans folks have to do to like get folks on the same level as them, and to be able to say like, okay, but if you put this in your perspective, in your experience, right, and consider something about you that is abnormal or interesting or unique, well, unique, or you know, kind of out of the ordinary, right, it really helps folks just in general, whether it's about gender, about sexuality, race, like, it helps to put it into that person's perspective. And so I thought, honestly, that was pretty well done.
Yeah.
Like, okay, Glee, you okay job with this. You did fine.
Yeah. Because then Ryder goes to apologize to Jake and Marley and Unique for meddling in their relationship and for misgendering Unique. And he's like, you know, you're a girl, you're a woman, I accept that. And then Unique starts to cry and he's like, "Oh, did I do it wrong?" And Unique talks about being harassed on the street by these popular girls, like being chased home. Yeah. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's awful. We're here for you." And then Kitty just waltzes in and is like, "Who are these girls? I'm going to put Nair in their shampoo bottles. I'm suddenly your guys' friend too. We're friends." And they're like, "Yeah, because we're gonna have to take over after Sam and Brittany and Tina and Blaine graduate."
The scene was it was like, I liked the Ryder Unique part, and then after that it kind of went off the rails a little bit.
Yeah, because it's just kind of, they're like, "Look at these new characters. You're gonna be spending time with them. Aren't you excited?" And I'm like no.
Yeah, please don't mention that these other characters are going to be leaving. Don't make me think about that right now.
Yeah, I'm like, these characters are just shadows of like, Marley's pretty good. Like, I don't hate them, actually. Like, I like them, but they're just like way less interesting and like flavorful than the characters that came before them.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, it is like a really big problem with TV shows that are about school, that are about like a specific system or institution, that there's like a graduation, a like, these people will leave at some point, is that you get to know that specific cohort of characters and you become really attached to them. And then naturally they're going to leave. So then what do? Instead of ending the show, you try to follow them in college and like have weird reasons for them to come back to the original location. And then you're bringing in new characters that will then fill some sort of mold of those that have been left behind. And it's going to always feel like this very strange, a very strange story when you have to replace, basically.
And Glee kind of wanted to do both, where they're like, we're going to stay in the high school and we're also going to follow them in college.
Yep.
And this is one of the few, like, Riverdale is a messy show. I love it to death, but I think everyone who works on it would be like, yeah, it's messy. But like, they did a time jump after they graduated. So then it was like after college, after they all had jobs, and then the characters were now the ages of the actors playing them. So I think that actually, like, I need to catch up, but like, I thought that was a good choice.
Yeah.
because sometimes like with Finn walking around the school, it feels a lot more like he's someone who's 5 years out of high school than 1 year.
Yeah.
He looks like he's 30. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And I mean, he probably was. Like,
Yeah, he was.
That's a huge issue with shows like this. I often think of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer was one of my favorite shows, and that's a series where they follow the characters through high school, and then after graduation, then they go to college, and then they move on with their lives and do adult things. But those actors and actresses were like already in their late 20s, early 30s as hashtag teenagers, right? Like, and it just was not watching that now, like as an adult who's of the age of the actors at the time, you realize that it's very weird. It's very, very awkward. But at least in that case, they did a pretty good job at following the characters beyond high school. Like they set their specific main cast and they stuck with them. With Glee, they are sticking with the Glee club and the school as the sort of main precipice of the show, whereas it's unfortunate because it's such a character-driven show that they then abandon some of the beloved old characters and are like, oh, we have to stick with Glee Club, as opposed to why couldn't we have brought Glee Club to college, right?
And
like I feel like
wonder,
there could have been a better way to do that.
it makes me wonder if this is like some sort of leftover idea from when they thought that the teachers were going to be the main protagonists of the show, because you would be able to follow the teachers even after the kids graduated. And I'm like, I wonder if the reason why they stayed in the school is because there was still this sort of like lingering idea that we had to be in the school.
That's interesting. Like I honestly did think about that a little bit with this of like, the teachers, like a show about teachers in high school. Like I can't think of really any show that exists like that, right? Where it's set up
been
in
a
that
couple
way.
tries. I don't think any of them got like past one season.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because like at this point, Schue is not redeemable. I think it would take so much. I honestly, I just don't think it could happen with Schue. And yeah, Sue is kind of cool, but I mean, she's very cool. But
she's cool. She's insane.
Yeah, she's
cool.
honestly very, for the most part, very one-sided, very like two-dimensional of a character. So there's not, they would have to do a lot of growing of her character, and at this point, like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Which I guess that's like a perfect segue into Sue versus Blaine. So Sue brings Blaine, which I think she calls him a young Burt Reynolds, into her office and is like, you signed a contract to be on the Cheerios, and I need a young, non-threatening gay to see these cheerleaders' baby ovens and feel nothing. And then Blaine's like,
okay, can we analyze this line for a second? Because she says, I need you to have a bird's eye view of these girls' baby
ovens.
And I was like, y'all work on a TV show and you don't know what bird's eye view means? It means you're shooting down from above. Worm eye view is when you're on the ground looking up.
You can tell that we work in the industry when you bring that kind of criticism in there. I think it's such a, like, it's both being very honest with like Glee's awareness of their the way they treat queer characters, as well as just like yep, we're being out in the open with this. Like Blaine is this like gay, he is a gay character, and we are going to like make sure that everybody is always aware of that. And I did follow Darren Criss from from a very Potter musical. I will say I was an OG Darren Criss fan. So when I found out that he was going to be in Glee and that he was going to be gay in Glee, I did like the episode where he and Kurt first like kiss. Oh, beautiful, beautiful shit. Like I just adored that. But yeah, like it is so funny of Glee to be like, the gay characters, look at them.
Spotlight. Yay.
Yeah,
Big
Rainbow
flashing
Spotlight.
And
letters.
especially like Jane Lynch, like I actually don't know, is Schue, I don't really remember much about Sue's character beyond being like a girl boss. She's her sexuality is like
Straight.
not clear in this. I'm not super
Straight.
Yeah, she's straight. And so
Yeah.
and we know Jane Lynch is a lesbian. And so it's always really funny to me, like when she says or does something homophobic. It's like
Oh yeah.
and yet you have Jane
I never even
Lynch,
thought
right?
about
Like
that.
who's a lesbian actress. And you know, it's just really interesting. And of course, Darren Criss is a straight cis male actress and playing a gay guy. Like it's just the levels there are so interesting. The layers,
Mhm.
as Shrek would say.
As Shrek would say.
That's a shout out to Hannah. An in joke about Shrek there.
So Blaine is like, I'm busy with student council and Glee Club. I don't have time for this. And then Tina's sitting there and she's like, I could do it. And Sue's like, why are you here? And Tina's like, you called me out of class. She's like, I don't want you, like, go. And Tina's just like, and Blaine's like, I'm not gonna do it. And Sue is like, you're making a powerful enemy. And so then Becky gives him hair gel. Here, gay Blaine, here's hair gel. And then it turns out to be cement.
Yes. This was, I think, foretelling, it was a foreshadowing of that one like TikTok trend where that one woman got her head like glued, her hair glued in like a helmet from really bad hair gel.
What?
It's like a random pop culture reference, I guess. Get cool, guys.
I think I've heard of this, yeah.
How did she get it off? Like
She had to go
baby
to the
oil or
hospital. She actually legit had to go to the hospital. Yeah,
They
look it
had to
up.
like cut it off of her head.
Yes.
Oh my
yes.
god.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what this reminded
Oh.
me of. I was like, oh, foreshadowing of real life events.
So sad.
And then Blaine is like, you took out a ton of like loans and credit cards in my parents' name, like, or in my name, my parents' credit is ruined. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really
that was
bad.
bad. That was really bad. As somebody who's trying to buy a house right now, I was like, whoa, that's not good. Like, if this show played up more of its realism in the drama, that would be a really bad, awful thing.
Yeah, like I'm like,
She's like,
yeah, I was
only
upset.
for 7 years.
Yeah.
Only for 7 years. I know. Sue is hilarious. Hilariously awful.
And then he's like, but worst of all, and I'm like, worst of all, but he's like, the sign. And then there's a plane with the sign that says Blaine's on the bottom and everyone's laughing. And he's like, and it's not true. Not really.
Yeah.
I'm obviously
very
the top
uncomfortable.
guys.
That's very 2013. Like the assertion of if you bottom in the relationship, you're like a lesser person, and just the like that sort of obsession with top and bottom in queer relationships, particularly queer male relationships. It's like, oh, Glee, you done it. You did it again.
As someone who was very recently in the gay dating pool, that is not a 2013 thing. That is still very
Wait,
alive
that's
and
still a
well.
real
True.
Oh, it's so big. It's so,
Oh.
yeah.
I'm sorry. That sounds awful.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Lil Nas X just recently on his Twitter, Instagram, or whatever was like, I'm a proud power bottom, and I was like, nice, like good for you, bro. like, but there's that assertion of like you have to like state what position you play, and it's like it's a very unique thing to the gay male community, and yeah, and so like the obsession with that with Blaine's character here is like both accurate and also unfortunate.
That's
Yes.
so interesting.
That's
I
the
see. I never knew that because there's this thing about kink shaming now, and I would say whatever position you want. That's like in the
Yeah.
world of kink a little bit, right? So it's just whatever you prefer.
I would say it's more of like it has so much, I don't know, it's more to do with like the natural positioning of oneself that is like beyond, it's not so much kink, it's more of just like that's how sex works for some folks.
Well, yeah,
so,
I mean, yeah.
right. And so I think it's like it's something that's like super normal and like natural that then gets blown out of like proportion in this very fetishized way that Glee is doing.
Yeah.
Like, good job, Glee, you done it.
Well, it's people's like addiction to like gender roles and gender power dynamics and trying to implement them in like a queer world.
Yes.
Like the community. Yeah, with the whole like thing, well, bottoms are femme and tops are masc and all these stereotypes and generalizations. And yeah, so Glee is taking part in that. So thanks.
Good job,
My
Glee, you
face
did
right
it.
now is like the math meme.
Yeah. With all the physics. Yeah, like
Sorry, what?
yeah. Join what is it, Grinder for a day and see how that kind of fun is.
Oh my goodness.
Except
Can
I worry about your safety.
catfish a gay man?
I did have someone on this was a very weird Tinder match, and he was like, I'll fuck your roommate. And I was like, my roommate's a girl. And he was like, I'll bottom for her. And
oh my God.
I'm like, I stopped talking because I'm like, I don't even know what to say. Like, this is so uncomfortable.
Oh my God. That's hilarious.
Wow. Okay.
Almost as weird as when the person asked if Allyssa shaved Suki, which is a weird question to begin with. But I thought they were asking if Allyssa shaved her legs, and I was just like, I don't know. I don't pay attention to this.
Yeah,
like,
why do you care?
Why do you
That's
care?
so wild. I actually kind of love that this random stranger is asking if Allyssa shaves her cat. Like, that's really hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, Suki is her fur, like, she has a shedding problem. So, like,
Yes.
honestly, I should probably
Yes.
ask, like, have you shaved Suki lately? But, like, it's none of my business. Suki just be living her cat life.
Suki is very distraught that Allyssa is gone right
Oh,
now.
is she?
She ate some plants and threw up.
Oh,
Ooh.
no. Oh, my
I was like, wait,
She's
where did this green stuff come
experimenting with
from?
magic mushrooms. Good for her. She's living her early 20s.
You know, she does that when she's upset. Is she'll go eat something she's not supposed to eat and then throw up, so you have to clean it.
Good times.
Yeah. So then they're like, Blaine is like, we're officially feuding. And they're like, we're gonna do a Glee Club performance. And she's like, okay, let's do Mariah Carey versus Nicki Minaj. I will be Nicki Minaj due to my Trinidadian roots.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And then she's like, Becky comes in later in this full Nicki Minaj getup, and she's like, Becky, you're Minaj's biggest fan, and Becky's just like, Minaj. And I don't know why, but I think it's hysterical.
That was pretty good.
Use her voice, Becky.
And they're
Indoor
like,
voice, yeah.
Sue's like, you're gonna show me how to be Nicki Minaj, and like start with like they work on their Minaj faces and their colorful Kool-Aid colored wigs, and then they're like, and then work on my crazy pants threat. And all I can think of is the stuff that Nicki Minaj has been saying lately.
So I know almost nothing about Nicki Minaj. I don't know what she looks like. I don't know what sort of faces she makes. I don't know what kind of threats she makes. I kind of sort of know what kind of music she sings, but probably only because like if I heard a song, I'd be like, yeah, I know that song, but I wouldn't know that it was Nicki Minaj's. So this whole storyline for me was just like, okay, I guess this is a person that exists.
I would definitely like recommend even just looking up a picture of Nicki Minaj or even watch her Anaconda music video. Like just watch that. And it will give you a perspective on what the show is trying to do, or even what did they do? What song did they did Super Bass?
Yeah.
Like watch that music video because honestly, like they're parodying her in a like sort of appropriating manner, which is so funny. Like that's really, really hilarious. But yeah, it definitely if you're not familiar with Nicki Minaj, definitely
Oh my God.
watch a video of her.
So just like I know the song Anaconda, but I didn't know it was Nicki Minaj. So now
Well, there's Anaconda,
okay.
and then there's the song that it what is it called? Samples, thank you, which is Sir Mix-a-Lot. But I saw Suki's tail in the background.
Hey, Suki.
She's like a little shark. I saw her shark fin.
She's been extra chatty.
Of course, she wants the attention.
Yeah. So Sue just starts like yelling random shit at Tina, basically.
She was like, leave me alone.
Oh, Suki's coming to say hi.
Suki.
Oh,
There she is. I see her fluffs. What a sweet girl. Oh, there's the tail. Wow. She graced us with her presence.
Suki, look up.
Yeah, it definitely was a reminder of like how big Nicki Minaj was in like 2013, 2014, like that era. She was huge. She was so popular. So it was honestly kind of funny to see such a focus on her now. Like, not that she's not great, but I was just blasted back to that time of like, oh yeah, Nicki Minaj was huge during this era.
Yeah. And so then they do their number. Blaine starts singing the Mariah Carey "I Still Believe," and his little red cardigan. And then Sue comes in with the lights change, and she comes in and she's like black lit, and she has these like neon wigs and the cheerleaders and like feathers and like a light up stage and tricycles, and she's singing super bass. And I'm like, what everyone apparently wanted was Sue Sylvester singing super bass.
Apparently.
This is, I think, in the top 10 most bananas Glee covers.
Yeah, this was so strange. I was honestly very taken aback by this.
Do you think Glee had focus groups where they were like, okay, if you could choose anyone, what songs would they sing? Which character would it be? And what songs would they sing?
I think this was honestly like, I wrote down for this, like, Jane Lynch looked like she was having a lot of fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I think this was an example of Nicki Minaj was super popular, really huge at this time. They brought this song in probably because the artist was so massive that like they were thinking, oh, here's a good way to get audiences like interested and jamming. But looking at it now, it's like, wow, this is weird. This is really strange.
Yeah.
But like, good for Jane Lynch, I guess. Like, she was definitely having a ball, no matter how awkward it was, which it was very awkward.
Yes, it was. And it occurred to me at the end of the show, but it was a little weird that Blaine's performance was so tame. Anyone notice that? He's
Yeah.
usually much more.
Give more information on that. Why was that?
So
weird?
he when he performs, he's usually much more engaging.
Yeah.
Like just in the way he performs, in the way that what he wears and how he interacts with whoever he's singing to.
Yeah.
And this was not his best song, and I thought it was a little bit weird, but like Schue blew him out of the water. And I just remember thinking it was slightly strange.
It was almost like they like swapped places in terms of the numbers that they normally have and the character, like the characterizations. It was almost swapped. It was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The line that Schue said towards the end of that duo or whatever was that he was gay Clark Kent from season 1 of Smallville.
Yeah,
I laughed out loud at that. I laughed out loud. I was like, okay, that is actually hilarious. And considering how tame and like basic it was, like that's very Clark Kent from season 1 of Smallville.
Yeah. And because like this also what happens later makes sense, because I was like, how come Sam doesn't vote for Blaine? And then but Tina does, and she's
the
like,
only one.
Yeah. And Schue is like, hag for life. Noted. And then everyone votes for Schue, so Blaine is going to be on the Cheerios. So he's made co-captain of the Cheerios with Becky. He's told to wear a thong to avoid visible panty lines.
That irked me so bad. This was one of those moments of like, he's still a student, right? And she's a teacher. Like, that is so inappropriate. I really hated that moment. I had written these notes ahead of time or as the episode was going, like, ooh, I don't like how they're doing these dynamics. And then it got to that part and I'm like, ugh.
This doesn't need a note.
Not right. That is so not right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna remember that. I don't need to write that down.
But they play it as comedy. Like it's played as comedy, and Blaine is like, lol, oh Schue, so funny, right? But it's super, super not appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And he's walking, like he leaves and he's like walking around holding this thong, and Sam comes up and is like, so it's working? And Blaine's like, yeah, we're gonna take Schue down from the inside, and by the time we graduate, Sue's reign of terror will be over.
Yeah, as he's walking down the hallway, you literally see his face like shift, and I was like, he's a shapeshifter. Like he goes from absolutely distraught to this grinning fox. And I was like, what is happening here?
Definitely. Shout out to Sam, who I forgot existed in this show. And like the whole time through this episode, I'm like, who is this? Like, I remember him, but I also kind of don't remember him. And he barely does anything. But yeah, shout out to that loser.
We love
for
Sam.
him for existing, I guess.
Sam's my Glee boyfriend.
So then at the end, the Glee Club all gets together and they perform Tegan and Sarah's Closer. And then Ryder tells Katie that he's moved on from Marley. And then Katie asks for a shirtless pic, and then he asks if they can meet, and then Katie disappears.
Yeah.
And there is a pan over to Unique.
Yes.
And who I'm pretty sure we are supposed to assume has been catfishing Ryder.
Yeah, so that was really interesting, and I had to do some more sleuthing on the Glee wiki, which I guess I won't give much.
No reveals.
I won't do any spoilers, but like that was really interesting to me. And I will say the last like 5 minutes, maybe 6, 7 minutes of this episode, the tone shift was like really stark and really strange. that was a moment that was very dark and kind of off from the rest of the episode.
Did anyone else see this coming?
See what
I mean, I'm new to this season, so I was like, okay, whatever.
I knew it was Unique when Katie explained how Unique was feeling.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that would make sense.
know what happened, so I don't want to spoil it.
I learned what happens from the
Glee
wiki, and it does make sense now that I, learned about it.
But I'm just gonna say Alyssa is very smart and very insightful.
Okay.
Basically you figured it out.
Okay.
It's just you figured it out really, and I didn't notice that you would figure it out from this episode, but you did. So that's you picked up on the clues.
It's definitely one of those moments where it's like, if you watch it a couple times over, then you're like, oh yeah, that's super clear the way that they are positioning that narrative. But kind of just I know when I watched it last night, and I was like, I didn't pay that much close attention to the ending. And then I was really intrigued about Unique's character and I wanted to learn more. And that's when I was researching, oh my goodness, so that's really interesting. And learned a little bit more about what is being written with the Katie character. So yeah, very, very interesting. And I will say, I personally don't like the catfishing trope. I met my wife online and we lived very, very far apart. We had not seen each other in person for many, many months. And it's kind of sad to see that as a trope that just persists, of people lying about who they are online. And yet the whole idea of that's where that sort of anonymity is how people are able to open up to one another is really interesting. And I hope that Glee touches upon that more. It probably won't because it's Glee, but it'd be cool if it did. I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where it goes and how they handle the situation. It once I picked up on that, it spoiled a little bit for me. Just that storyline.
Right.
Because I think they were putting Unique in a bad position at that point, and I was not a fan of the last 30 seconds of the episode.
It is interesting though to mention that the trans and non-binary, gender non-conforming community, as well as just the greater queer LGBT plus community with the internet, has sort of found that sense of community and gained that greater voice from the internet that I think is, again, probably not going to be touched upon in Glee. But it kind of makes sense that if Unique is Katie, right, then it does kind of make sense. But also it's they're probably not going to touch upon the nuances of that and why she would have chosen to present herself that way.
The idea that Unique is online anonymously and has a different persona doesn't bother me, but the fact that they chose a skinny white girl for her persona bothers me.
True. Yeah, that
bothers me.
That's such a good point. I didn't even think about that. That this is a desirable female person, right? That is you're totally on point there. I think that I didn't even think of.
No, that's really insightful. Yeah. And also, Unique's putting in all this work to get the shirtless pictures of Ryder that are in the calendar that anyone can get.
I know. They already have Unique already has that picture.
So I wish, if this was a dark comedy, you'd see Unique on the other end being fuck, I have this picture, Ryder.
What am I doing? That's so funny.
I think that's the end of the episode. So that leads us into Tina time.
Tina time. Tina was actually in this episode. She did things.
Yeah, but she did not talk that much. I want to say 3 lines.
I have 6.
Okay,
Good for her.
I actually like halfway counted exactly, apparently.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I was very distracted by the fact that I forgot to watch the episode, and so I sat down and I was watching it. I was like, Tina has been speaking, but I'm trying to pay attention and like really focus. It was a disaster. My brain was not working.
I definitely noticed her. Like I knew that Tina time was a thing, that Allyssa, highlights her. And I also think she is grossly underappreciated and underfeatured in the show. But I was like, oh my God, she's actually here. She's saying things and doing things. And I don't remember if she was featured that much in any songs, but like that's definitely something we don't get a lot of, and still have that lack of Tina, but she was always there in a lot of the episode.
Tina's been pretty present in season 4.
Yeah, she has. Yeah. With a slightly different personality than they originally gave her.
Does she have a personality? Different. I can't tell what her personality is. Like,
they've kind of turned her into a very high maintenance sort of
drama queen.
Yeah, drama queen.
Cool. Is she like the Santana stand-in, maybe? Like a little bit of that?
Maybe.
Almost more of a Rachel, though.
More of a Rachel, that makes sense.
It's like a kind of a mix between the two.
Cool.
Yeah.
Go Boss. Gaslight Geeky, Go Boss, Glee.
Oh yeah, go Tina.
So let's talk about our MVPs and LVPs.
Yes.
So Nick, who's your LVP?
Good question. A lot of the new characters, and when I say new, I mean new for me. So like the season 4 characters, the new cast. I mean, Schue is honestly terrible. Like he is always the LVP no matter what. I do have to say though, his singing voice is pretty good. Like it's unfortunate because his performances are often pretty nice, pretty decent. But yeah, I didn't have that many opinions on LVP, just like kind of the basic Schue, and then all of the new season 4 characters that I just didn't know that much about. I was like, yeah, you exist.
Allyssa?
I'm going with William Schuster.
William Esquire Schuster.
Yep. Yeah. He really showed his true colors today.
What is he?
So you want to be riding around with your
Is Alexa speaking to us?
Drag you and her out that motherfucking car. Key your shit.
What is happening? I'm so scared.
You triggered something.
Alexa, be quiet.
Alexa, shut the fuck up. We're gonna have to cut you in post. Alexa, God.
It sounded like the This Is For Rachel thing.
It sounded like Nicki Minaj.
Nicki Minaj.
Wow.
All right, so Will Schuster.
Yes. He showed his true colors and was extremely, like, I think this is the most overtly emotionally abusive I've seen him in a relationship that I actually care about.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm gonna go with Will too. As he said, he showed his true colors, and that true color was shit brown.
Yes. So true.
Shout out to Finn though for the future wife comment, because that was
Oh yeah.
Yeah, good
Yikes.
point. Yeah, that was super awkward. Very weird.
So Nick, who's your MVP?
Okay, so I do have to say, Unique was really cool. This was my first time, I think my first time meeting her. But I really liked, even though it was 2013, which seems very, very far away, long ago, like I think they did a really cool job at her asserting her gender, asserting her identity. The like I'm a strong Black woman comment was very cool. However, I will say, like, my Santana is always my favorite character, no matter what. Like, I don't care what Santana does. I am always 100% there for her shit. And so just the fact that she was in this episode, she was being her special, usual self, going a little bit too far, but doing it in the name of friendship. I did kind of like that. So it was mostly Unique with a side of Santana.
I'm gonna go pretty much in the same direction, but I'm gonna do mostly Santana with this side of Unique.
Yeah, nice.
I quite enjoyed Santana's righteous rage. Like this
Yes.
is the time that we fully see her like actually take someone down, and it's for a good reason, and I'm getting like full on gray like anti-hero vibes, and I'm just here for it.
It honestly makes me wish I had Santana as a friend. Like, she is such a fierce friend, even though the flaw of her character is that she doesn't quite know when too far is too far, you know, like, but I appreciate that she cares so deeply.
So for me, part of me wanted to go with Marley because I feel like Marley was being very mature. But sometimes I feel like the MVP isn't always like the most, like the best character, but they're the character that puts in the most work that episode.
Ooh.
So I'm going to go with Ryder, because this is the most interesting Ryder's ever been. He's a transphobe, but he matures and he gets over it. But Ryder's always been really boring. And this is actually like an interesting plot line for him. So
it's a good example of like, I wouldn't even necessarily call him a transphobe. He's just ignorant. Like, he just doesn't know. And so having that experience and learning from Unique and learning from seeing the other characters stand up for Unique and like give the appropriate response to bullying and misgendering, I think helps him understand that he was in the wrong and he's going to work on his behavior. I think it's a really good arc for him. Good development.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm going with Ryder, because I thought it was a good arc and it was the most interesting he's ever been on this show.
True statement.
Yeah. So let's talk about the music. We have a lot of mashups this week, which is always fun. So we have How to Be a Heartbreaker, The Bitches Back / Dress You Up, Cold Hearted, Bye Bye / I Want It That Way, I Still Believe / Super Bass, and Closer. So Nick, what was your least favorite song?
I mentioned that Jane Lynch looked like she had a blast with Super Bass, but that was awkward as hell. The accents were so bad, like her trying to do the black accent. The mashup itself, like musically, I thought was really bad. Like, I thought the attempt at putting Super Bass with whatever the other song was, like, it just did not fit quite right to me. Like, creative choice, I guess, but the whole thing was like super strange in my opinion.
I'm going with the last song that they sang. What one was that?
Closer.
Closer. Yeah, the one where everyone's really happy-go-lucky and singing a song together, and it was like, this is officially your new cast.
True. And they pulled Artie up out of his chair. Like, I was a little worried for a second there.
Yeah, I was not into that song. It did not match any of the storylines or what was going on. And I was just like, really? Again, we have to do this. Come on.
Yeah, they already did Some Nights, which is supposed to be like, this is your new cast.
Yeah. It was just like awkward and unnecessary, and I was not here for it.
I agree with you. I'm going with Closer too. I like barely remember it happening. Like it wasn't that
very
interesting.
forgettable. Very forgettable. I just remember them pulling Artie out of his chair and hoisting him like 5 feet in the air onto that ledge, and I was like, bro,
Not a good idea.
yeah.
So Nick, what was your favorite song?
It might be just purely nostalgia speaking, but Bye 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 and I Want It That Way, that mashup was super cool. I really liked we've already talked about the narrative of it, like the non-linear alternate reality fantasy thing going on, but musically I thought it was really cool. And I just like, again, I mentioned I get those two bands confused all the time. So it's a good way of being like, yes, they are two separate bands, but they're so similar in that, right? They're both 90s, 2000s boy bands. Why not put them together? And I thought it worked. I thought it was cool.
Mm-hmm. That definitely was a contender for me. I was not really into boy bands at the time that they were extremely popular, but I remember the music because it was so popular. And you're right, it was very nostalgic, and the way that they did the performance, if you take out all of the non-linear stuff, the way they did the performance was actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I'm actually gonna go with the one that Ryder and Unique sing.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I Dress You Up in My Love / The Bitch Is Back.
Yes. I actually thought that was an extremely high energy mashup. It went really well together. And I liked the different parts that they had, and that when Unique was singing, she would stand in front of Ryder while he was on the drums, and he was able to express aggression on the drums because he was pounding them. Like, it was just it was a very visual and high energy scene, and I liked the songs. I thought it was a good mashup. So
I have a bit of a spicy take.
Ooh.
whoa.
Hit it.
As much as I love How to Be a Heartbreaker, my pick is Super Bass / I Still Believe.
Oh.
Because it's so fucking weird.
It was so weird. Like, it was such a choice. It was such a choice.
Yeah. But it's like the most memorable because it's so bananas.
That's true.
And just like, no one wanted this, no one asked for this, but we got it anyway.
Yeah.
Which is
Except for
Glee's.
maybe Jane Lynch. This feels like such a Jane Lynch bait that it's like, okay, whatever, I'll take it.
Yeah. Like, and that's what Glee's all about, is giving us things no one wanted or asked for. So yeah, that's my pick. So that brings us to the end of our episode. Nick, do you have any social medias you'd like to plug?
Not necessarily. I did mention, I'm gonna break structure for a second. I did just briefly want to mention, because I had brought it up earlier in the episode, the editing. Okay, shout out to the terrible editing of this episode.
Oh yeah, the scene, yeah.
So the end of this episode, as what's his name? Brody? Is his name Brody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is walking through the hallway of the hotel. And we do these very darkly lit jump cuts of him through the hotel in a very horror-esque tone.
Yeah, it did look like a horror movie.
What the hell show am I watching? That was so off that I had to write it down. I was like, the editing of the hallway scene was so weird. This episode, just in general, the editing of the hallway of the hotel, like that weird time lapse / jump cut, plus the very strange non-linear editing narrative of the Bye Bye Bye, I Want It That Way mashup. The editors of this episode were on something, and good for them if they got to keep their jobs after this.
There have been a few episodes this season where I'm like, the editing, like it just kind of sucks. Like it's weird. There are some very, very odd choices.
Yeah, for sure. But yes, so back with what you were mentioning. So like any plug shout outs. Honestly, my biggest plug, I try to be pretty private on social media because I'm always afraid that students are going to follow me and then learn things about my life. But honestly, shout out to teachers and school staff, like faculty and staff right now, especially those that are working with like adolescents and teenagers, because teenagers right now are struggling really hardcore with like the transition back to in-person school, but it's really the faculty and staff of these schools that are holding it all together. And I work with a lot of them pretty closely, and like they're going above and beyond. So honestly, shout out to them.
Cool.
All right. You can follow Gleeboot at Gleeboot Pod on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And you can follow us at gleebootpod.tumblr.com.
I had no idea you guys had a TikTok and a Tumblr. Oh my god!
The TikTok
follow
has not been updated in a long time, but I will get back to it at some point.
Nice.
I have no idea what's on the Tumblr. I don't even know.
Yeah, I do most of I manage the Instagram, and so I've been like some seasons we've fallen behind, but this season like I make the post for each episode, so I know the Instagram is our like most active social media. Alyssa?
Okay, you can follow me on Instagram at a.m.swearingen. Say that 20,000 times fast.
No thanks. But I already follow you, so it's all good.
So Nick, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate this. This is super fun. Bringing back my Glee days. I feel like a 17-year-old again, just with more aches and pains.
Well, yes. And we will have you back on at least in the 6th season, right?
Yeah, because the 6th season, spoiler for this is a teaser for the audiences. I want to have all repeat guests in honor of the show being out of ideas.
Yes.
So there's an episode that I picked Nick for.
Yes.
So Nick will be back.
I look forward to it.
Yes,
right.
we look forward to it.
Yes. Well, see you all next week, guys, for an episode. What is it? Oh, I don't want to talk about what's next week. We'll find out. All right. Bye.
Bye.